Hi, my name's Emma, and let's talk spooky stuff. On the 3rd of July, Netflix released its first ever Japanese horror original, and that was Ju-on Origins. This series was a reimagining of the original concept, but we'll get to that. Origins is a 6-part series that I would refer to as more of a mini-series, given each episode is only 30 minutes long. It focuses on the origin of the infamous haunted home from the franchise and a string of murders that cause the imprint to grow out of control. This includes what we believe to be the initial spark, the initial cause for the haunting of the home, but I'm not too sure about that, and my theory is it probably isn't. Answers may come in a season 2 because it was never confirmed, and as we know, the series concluded with an open ending. In this video, I want to decompress and I want to talk about some of those pretty interesting parts of the series. I want to talk about the overwhelming reaction to the show, and of course, where it lands in the franchise. So for this purpose, I will hold all my spoilers to the end, so I'll let you know when I'm about to spoil anything. And let's get started where it all began. Ju-on translates to curse grudge. As per the original, the explanation for the term is when a person dies with a deep and powerful rage, a curse is born. There are 11 Japanese grudge films. This also includes the initial short film from 1998 known as 444444444, and a couple of V-cinema films that were part of a direct-to-video industry that was really big in Japan in the 80s. And then there's the American remakes. And yes, I'm including the 2021. Can you believe that that film came out this year? Can we blame it? Did it curse us all? Seriously, did that just curse 2020? The franchise also includes half a dozen correlating novels, some comics, and a graphic novel. What I'm trying to say is the franchise runs deep and it's not going anywhere. I think I can speak for most people when I say that I binge watched this Netflix TV show and I was so shocked when those disturbing scenes came up. I thought that it was going to be the same scare level that was delivered to us throughout the whole franchise, but instead we got something that was deeply disturbing. I mean, I think that the originals are disturbing, but the violence in the originals are as scary as the ghosts, and this was something completely different on a different level with a different subject matter. This series follows several people whose lives are torn apart by the violent curse of the house, but also by the evil that the home attracts. Their stories intertwine and reveal the power of the home, allowing them to relive each other's tragedies, some even becoming possessed by their darkness. But as I said, the show is less about jump scares, pale ghosts, and creepy, croaky voices. It showed violence and trauma that spread like a disease throughout these people's lives, and cruel, dark consequences. The initial reaction for this series was shock. And I have to say, I was there with you. At the end of the first episode, my lord, I had no idea what was coming though. That was not the worst of it. And I think it really tricks you into thinking it's going to be all about those ghosts in the attic and those scary, creaky noises, especially in the first episode when they bring the footsteps into play. And it really sets you up to knock you down. The show went beyond what anyone considers horror, and I'm saying that in the term of mainstream horror. A lot of audiences who do not watch horror often think it is all teen slashers, and this went far beyond anything I thought would go onto a streaming platform, let alone Netflix. It depicts graphic scenes that I can't even discuss on YouTube, otherwise I'll be demonetized and this video will be suppressed. It also explored subject matters that even the most extreme horror movies are known for or don't even want to touch. And for this, the show was deeply criticized, but mostly because of its lack of warning. If you're not aware of this, it could be because you're around other people who have like-minded tastes. You follow other people online. So you're in like a, I don't want to say echo chamber, but I mean a good echo chamber when it's like other horror fans and you're like hanging out in your little pocket of the world. A little bit different to using it in a different way. So I'm not surprised if you haven't heard about the shock and the reaction from the general public. At the time of filming this, the show does have a certificate warning about sexual violence, but there was still backlash online about how little it did to warn the viewer and the lack of other trigger warnings. This is an interesting topic because this is why ratings exist. People forget that horror ratings actually means something. And it's not just about gore, it's actually about the context within the film. And it's the only thing that's separating someone who is vulnerable to this kind of information, let's just put it that way, to watching any of these scenes and being traumatized from them. People always kick off about horror and how it has a PG rating, but it's not meant to tell you how terrifying and scary it is. It's meant to be protecting people from watching it who should not be watching it, who aren't mature enough and can't deal with that kind of content. So it's not really about how scary the movie is, it's more about how adult the themes are. Am I making sense? But this is where it becomes a little bit tricky, because with trigger warnings, there are particular aspects that are named in those trigger warnings so you know if they apply to you. But it does kind of spoil the film. Look at it this way. The point of a thriller film is for the audience to be put in a certain situation that they find thrilling and tense. This also works for comedy. You're expected to laugh and react, but the rating is very important because it tells you the level of maturity the joke needs without giving away the punchline. And the punchline in comedy is the reveal, which is much like in horror, which the scare is normally something that's unknown. We're scared of the unknown. So if that gets revealed to us in a trigger warning, does it take away from the movie? The thing that we did not know going into Ju-on is that the horror relies on shock value. And we've seen this in certain movies. I'm not gonna go into any clips because I don't want to give anything away, but there is a lot of movies, new films that come out, horror movies that rely on a shock moment. And that is what's scary because it's unexpected and it's the complete unknown, and that's what Ju-on did. So what is too far? Are we so desensitized to these horror ratings that we think, okay, if something is, higher rated, it's just gonna be more bloody and gory, and we don't actually care about the content until we see it and we're offended by it? It's just something to think about. I really don't lie on either side of this. I think it's just a nuanced conversation. I think it's really interesting to discuss with you guys, but I am all for trigger warnings because I can understand how people would need them. But at the same time, I do think that they could give away certain things. So I encourage you, if you are triggered by anything, to check out those trigger warnings. They also list them on IMDb. If you ever want to find out before seeing a movie, if you do hear that it's a little bit too intense, definitely check them out. But ratings serve a purpose, guys. They're not just there to be like, this is the most badass horror movie ever, go check it out. I see a lot of people complaining that we get PG horror, but it's all meant for a different audience. I know this sounds very obvious to most of you guys out there, but I just see the same conversation over and over complaining about ratings, but they're there to serve a purpose. And was this too disturbing for a general audience or for a broad audience? Should this have been put on Netflix? It's pretty crazy. If you think about 13 Reasons Why, they cut out that scene. That's not a similar scene to what happens in Ju-on. I'm still not spoiling anything. Don't worry, you will not be able to guess what I'm even talking about. Those people who have seen it definitely know what I'm talking about. But if they cut out that, obviously it's because that was made for a younger audience and it could be used to romanticize violence. So I don't know, should this be so easily accessible to kids? The craziest part about all of this is it doesn't make any difference because look at the rating system. This you can see in Australia when you're 16. Wow, 16 was like half a lifetime ago for me, but my gosh, if I saw this when I was 16, I think I would be traumatized. I'm really making it into a big thing. If you have seen it, please let me know down below. I'm sure at least your mouth dropped a little bit. Come on. But to push aside the classifications, I really do think that the shock value and the disturbing content of this series was the twist. It was the reveal. It was the shocking moment. We expected to go in there being completely creeped out by people coming through the cupboard closet, when she comes down in all of the series and all of the franchise. And instead, we were completely shocked and horrified by humankind and the acts of violence they do to each other. And I felt like that was the whole series. That's what it was really about. It wasn't about the step, creep. It was about really serious stuff, and it changed it from being more of like a ghost haunting story into a really sad and terrifying violent past, which I guess is the meaning of the words Ju-on. I can honestly say the ghostly aspects of this film were far less scary than anything that the humans committed, although I know that kind of does get entangled, obviously, given the curse and that being put on other people. I think it was just greatly different to anything I'd seen in the films. I'd like to know if you agree. But that wasn't the only reaction to the series. We're not done yet, guys. The second reaction was confusion. Many viewers across the world reacted to the series confused as hell to what had just happened. It's important to remember going into this that the house is the only thing connecting the characters, and time is not. The house is like a different level of existence where they can coexist and something can be experienced by more than one party at the same time. The sooner you let go of linear time, the better. But also, be kind to yourself. The series has over 30 actors playing named characters that reappear throughout the show. Some as the younger version, sure, and some as the older version. It's a 3-hour-long series, so to digest that many roles in that amount of time with so much happening is extremely overwhelming. And lastly, keep in mind that this series doesn't connect to what you may know in the films, but instead reinvents the ideas behind the films, and even with some common reoccurring characters. There is a theory suggested about how this fits into the American remake films. The films and the series do share some of the same names and concept, but in a loose and interchangeable way. There are two aspects in every Ju-on piece of media, including the books, including the TV series, and including all of the movies and the remakes. Number one, time is a construct. Number two, you put your foot in that house, you're fucked. That's all you have to remember, guys. And now I want to talk to you about my thoughts on the series and what I thought as a whole, and give you a little bit of a mini review. So if you have not seen the series, you're probably very confused what's going on, so definitely go watch it, and you can come back and watch this part afterwards. For me, I really enjoyed the series, but I do agree that especially towards the end, there were a couple episodes trying to tie up things that just made it more confusing, especially when people disappear into thin air. And that was the thing about this series. It tried to do so many different things and had different moments. Sometimes they just couldn't pull it off, and sometimes they did, and that is when your jaw dropped. But my biggest letdown of the series might actually surprise you. I haven't heard many people talk about this. I loved the acting in a lot of the series. I thought it was superb. It was really haunting, and I think that they did really well with casting the series. But Tetsuya, my God. I don't ever say this, will hardly ever. I hated the actor who played him. It just looked like he was gonna laugh in every situation. I don't know if he wasn't good at playing reaction to a ghost. And the shocking face when she goes to see him after he's died and she sees his face. Was it just me? That was ridiculous. It just did not fit any of the same vibe or aesthetic for the rest of the show. It was so creepy, especially at the end with the creepy music, the beautiful end shot they do in each episode with the credits. Everything was really creepy and mysterious. And then you got this guy. I couldn't. Seriously, I was just not down for that, and I don't understand how that got tied into this whole thing. I wish that they would have kept his face a complete secret, because I was not down for it. I just thought mystery works better, especially when you got this to look at. That's really mean, I know, I'm just being honest. One scare I really enjoyed was the ghost shadow. I thought that this was a great play on the old Japanese horror films, especially when they used high contrast in their demons and entities and spirits. And I felt like this was a meeting of the two. It's a meeting of the grudge ghosts we know so well, and then highly contrasted, so we just see the eyes. And I thought that this was really clever, and I really, really liked that part. Overall, I really thought that the TV show was beautiful. Maybe to avoid all of the confusion, one of the interwoven stories should have been removed, or the time jumps should have been taken away entirely, allowing the house's events to play out in order. But I guess, what is the fun in that? This series is only 3 hours long, and I really enjoyed it for what it was, a troubling, horrific mini-series. And I'm gonna say it, the baby scenes. I can't say too much here. We'll see if this gets monetized. Completely startling. I don't know what else to say about them. I was completely shocked. I can't believe it went there. And I saw some people say that they thought that the baby with the food scene, like, I don't know if it was like a bento box, it looked like a, you know, a bento box, was funny. And it's weird thinking about it now. But I want to use a different word than baby, but I can't because I feel like that will totally get me in trouble here. I didn't think it was funny. I thought it was completely shocking and so creepy. So creepy. And when I say that other horror movies won't touch this kind of subject matter, I really do mean that. A lot of movies like Inside, even like Human Centipede, things like that, they do have moments with same kind of things happening, but never to this extent, or not as like reoccurring. I felt like it was just such a shock. I mean, with Inside, you expect to go in there and you know what the film is about, but this was really a shock. I don't know, I just can't get over that. I'm never gonna forget this series because of that. I'm still in disbelief they went that far. I'm not really someone who's gonna be upset by this subject matter, but I can completely understand that some people are. So I'm really interested to hear what you guys have to say, particularly about that aspect. If you guys have watched this far, I have not spoiled it too much if you haven't seen it. And I do really recommend it. As I said, it's only 3 hours long. It's definitely worth your time just to check out what the buzz is about. I really like this series because although it's not perfect, I feel like it really opens the gates for what is next for Ju-on. I feel like it's not going to be the same American remakes. Hopefully this has influenced the story to just push itself a little bit further, and maybe Hollywood can just push the line somewhere and stop relying on the same horror cliches and know that you can take something and reinvent it, and it can be still shocking in its own way. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. It was a little bit different, but I did want to talk about this series, and I know a lot of you guys really wanted to hear what my thoughts were. I hope you're having a great day. If you have not subscribed, please do. I do 2 videos every single week, and we can chat again just like this. I'll talk to you very soon. Stay spooky. Bye, guys.